Hi, this is Ryan Thomas Johnson of Carnosaur 2, and you are listening to The Final Gaze.
Welcome to The Final Gaze. I am Toby.
And I am Harrison.
And today we are covering Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Yeah, God, I'm so glad we're covering this because, especially right after watching the house that Jack built.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Doing these back-to-back was accidental, but I'm so glad it landed that way.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. These are two examples of how to do it great and how not to do it.
Yes, and I'm curious to see which side you fall on.
Well, let's get into it then.
Alrighty, so, Harrison, when was the first time you saw Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer?
Gosh, Friday night. First time ever. I have owned this movie ever since they came out with that really awesome Blu-ray release.
Of course you did.
And I haven't watched it. So that's why I put it on this list to make it an opportunity to finally watch this movie. And I'm so glad we did because, well, we'll get into it. But yeah, no, I watched it for the first time this past Friday.
I also watched it for the first time Friday. Watched on Hulu, I think it was. No, Prime. Mm-hmm. It's free on Prime. Yeah, I've heard of it. It's kind of infamous, I guess. You know, at the time it was really, really edgy and kind of blew people's minds. It was one of those movies where when it screened, apparently the whole audience left or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's, I've heard of it. I'd seen clips, I think, throughout the years. Do you remember they did that thing on Bravo? It was like the 100 scariest scenes in horror.
No, I don't, unfortunately. I think, gosh, well, depending on when it happened, I haven't had cable in like more than a decade. So
it was like between 2000 and 2005, I think.
Ooh, then I don't remember that, unfortunately.
Like every big name in horror, like all these interviews of them telling their favorite scary stuff and then like ranking them. And I remember this one was on it, and they showed the clip of the TV death.
Yeah.
So I knew that was going to come up, but yeah, this is the first time I've seen it.
No, this is I've seen nothing about this movie. No trailer, no clips even. All I knew about it was it starred Michael Rooker, and of course, I think the one scene in the movie in which the whole promotional material is based off of is just him standing in front of that mirror. So I knew nothing about it at all. And when I was watching, I was realizing, oh my God, that's so-and-so. And oh my God, that was brilliant. So I think that's giving a little taste of what I think about it. But yeah.
I didn't recognize anyone else in this movie. Did you? Besides Michael Rooker.
Just Tom Towles. All right. Yeah. Mr. Towles. I think that's how you say his name. He's the psychotic sheriff from Devil's Rejects.
Who does he play? Oh, Otis.
Otis. He plays Otis.
He's
yes.
A piece of shit.
Yeah. And I definitely want to talk about Otis as we go on.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking that up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I guess we get into our favorite part of the podcast.
Yes. Cue the music. And now it's time for our favorite part of the podcast, Nerdy Film Score Talk. Nerdy Film Score Talk. Cue the skew. But yeah, there's only a few tracks I want to mention. This isn't exactly like, a really. There's only. I was able to only find
material.
Yeah, I was only able to find a 10-track soundtrack on YouTube, and that's what
I just listened to that.
Yeah, so I'm just basing it off that, and I want to talk about five tracks out of the 10. So The first we're going to discuss is Henry's theme. It's accompanied by a low droning and some high-pitched bells and piano. And interspersed throughout the song is some disturbing, like low-pitched voices, and that possibly represents Henry's inner voice telling him to kill.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's great because it could have been inspired by Harry Manfredini's score for Friday the 13th, because you got the
Yeah.
and I don't know, maybe you can help me. Maybe you can help me clear this up. What is it saying in the music? Isn't it like I hear like you know?
Oh, and Friday the 13th?
Yeah.
It's mom.
Okay.
Because it's kill mom.
Okay.
Or kill ma is what it says. It says kill, mom.
Yeah, that's great. And that I've always wondered about that forever. And I think I'm
it's
just
like
going on.
Is what people think of.
So, and that's not to say that this movie didn't inspire this, but I feel musically maybe it did, because, and I could never hear what the voices were saying, but there's definitely voices in this track. And that's what I was just kind of thinking that is what that's representing. But we'll play that for you right here. All right.
I really like it. I think this is my favorite track.
Yeah. I got my favorite track, and that's going to be the fourth one we'll talk about.
Becky Downtown.
No, definitely
the
not.
shittiest track.
Definitely not.
Does not fit in this movie.
The next track I want to mention is called "The Stalk," and honestly, the very simple comment about this track: it's just some very effective stalking music,
One of these I was listening to, I think I can't remember. It's in the middle of the soundtrack, but it's just like I was listening to it and I was talking to Brian, and I just was like, he's like, what are you listening to? Because I was talking to him, but I was like doing this, and I was like, this random soundtrack, and suddenly it's like really doing it for me. I forget which track that. It was like a nice beat going on.
I think that is my favorite track we're going to talk about. But the first thing I discuss first is the worst track on the soundtrack, and it's possibly the most direct-to-video VHS infomercial music there is, Becky Downtown. I don't like it. I don't even know if it fits the scene. It took me out of it. It's like we went from this really deep character study on serial killers to like,
just Becky going downtown,
working at a salon.
Yeah, I hated it. It doesn't fit in with the other tracks at all.
It should have been knowing what happens at the end. I think it would have played better if it was somber music that might unsettle you as like, oh, something sad's about to happen or will happen.
Yeah, this is literally the happiest she is in the whole movie. Probably her whole life.
Her whole life.
And
doesn't last too long.
Yeah, this is like the only shining moment she gets of being happy, and the music represents that. But it's almost like a lie because it's so corny. And I think it's the only scene that doesn't really fit in the whole movie. And it's the one track on the score that doesn't fit in with the rest.
I agree. Yeah, I was listening to it, and then that track came on, and I was like, did it skip to a different playlist?
Yeah, and you know what it kind of reminded me of as far as like it making me feel the way I felt? The track you didn't like from Fire in the Sky.
Yes,
with the whatever the instrument that was. I don't know. I have a feeling it was a keyboard, but... And we're going to go on to the next track, and I think this is the one that, first off, I loved it the first time I heard it in the movie, and it's my favorite track on this whole score, and it is so simple. It's almost like a really it's a very simple execution of a sound effect of a VHS tape going frame by frame, and they just build on top of that, and it's simple and it's effective, and I just love the way the sound effect of the tape going frame by frame kind of acts as a metronome, and it builds off of that.
That I think is what I'm thinking of, because it definitely had like a.
Like, oh, okay, all right, I can feel this.
Brian's like, oh, great, you're bopping to a soundtrack for a serial killer.
If you're bopping to a score of a videotape of someone getting murdered. Yeah, and almost raped, necrophilia style.
Ugh. That was a rough scene.
Yeah, but I loved it.
Tastefully done.
Oh my God, I can't wait to get to general discussion on that.
Yeah, okay, great.
And finally, the last one, Beauty and the Beast. And the only thing I can really say about this is I guess this could be considered our love theme.
I think it's a good. I think there's some pretty. I like the music. I think it fits the movie really well. There's not a whole lot there,
except for Becky Downtown.
But I think I might at least get the theme and maybe the other track we just discussed, like the metronome.
Yeah.
I think it's good, but you're never going to be like a release of famous horror themes. Henry's theme's never going to be on it.
No, it's not as... Honestly, I can't recall it. I can hear it in my mind, but I can't be like, oh, okay. It's not as memorable as Michael Myers' theme. It's not even as memorable as Freddy's theme.
Yeah, or Friday the 13th.
Or Friday the 13th. You know, they all have very specific sounding scores. I, for the life of me, can't remember Henry's theme. But he does have a theme, and it is presented, so...
I do think it fits really well. I like Henry's theme.
Yeah. But yeah, oh God, even Hellraiser. I can recall Hellraiser's theme.
See, I can't for Hellraiser. I always forget about Hellraiser.
Oh. Well, join us next year as we discuss the first next Halloween. Not this Halloween. Next Halloween. Sorry, that was horrible, but...
I was like... I have some catching up to do.
But, that's essentially the score. The one amusing tidbit I discovered about this was that they completely performed and recorded this score in a Christian rock recording studio. So when
I love that.
When those Christian rockers finally went to go see the movie, they were absolutely shocked. You know,
I'm sure they were.
and I'll bet you my top dollar that those Christian rock, whoever artists that were in that studio, their favorite track was definitely Becky Downtown.
Yes, that's the only time where they were like, yes,
I can feel
this
it.
This is what we thought.
Yes. But
I feel happy.
Little did they know, my Lord.
Oh, poor Becky.
But that's really it for Nerdy Film Score Talk.
Agreed. Should we move on to general discussion?
Yes, sir.
I didn't get a whole lot of I did read some behind the scenes stuff, but I think like last time we can kind of blend it in with general discussion.
All right.
So, opening titles right away, I had my notes. I loved the music, but I also think immediately you get what is different between this kind of serial killer movie and The House That Jack Built. Mm-hmm. Because I think the murder aftermaths that we see, the bodies, are although they're disturbing, they have that thing that we talk about, that it's like somewhat beautiful. Like the very first shot of the woman in the grass, although it's horrible, was murdered, the way it's shot with the music, I felt like is one of those. These are really beautifully put together shots, despite the graphicness of the bodies.
Yeah, and it's the one thing about those things. There's actually two things. The one is that the positioning of these victims were said to have been inspired by the real serial killer who allegedly committed these murders. You know, I say allegedly because I don't think they ever were able to confirm if his stories were accurate or not. They just took the details he gave them. Specifically, my favorite one, obviously, being the most gruesome one with the broken beer bottle in that woman's face.
That was actually my favorite.
Yeah.
As disturbing as that is.
And I think I know, and based off at least this opening scene, at least, you know, I think I know why you like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, better than Jack. You know, you know, with the house that built, with the house that Jack built, you saw him like commit these murders, and you couldn't relate to him at all.
You saw the suffering.
Yeah, and in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, we don't, well, first of all, we don't see him kill anyone just yet. We just see the aftermath of the kill, so you can't really apply that character to committing those crimes yet, you know.
And you hear screams, right? You hear what is taking place, but you never see it, and I feel like that's such a more elegant way of portraying these kinds of violent crimes. It wasn't as disturbing. It's not gonna like satisfy gorehounds, I think, as much as Jack.
I was pretty satisfied with this one.
I thought it was pretty. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good, but I feel like it's just it's weird to say the word tasteful, but I do think this was tastefully done despite the content.
Oh, absolutely. Tastefully done. I mean, I totally kind of thought this movie was way older. I thought it was like 80, 81. It turns out that it was completed in 86, but came out in 89. And at that point, we got all those mindless slashers coming out through Friday the 13th, Sleepaway Camp, and, you know, all of your...
I think what Jason Takes Manhattan was around there.
Yeah, you know? So now we have this other killer whose gore is somewhat earned, and it's not, and it is very gratuitous, but in a weird way it is not, you know, because I mean, for instance, I think there are some people who did deserve to die. The television salesman,
what a piece of shit. I would have done it too.
And there are people that don't deserve to die, such as the man who pulls over to help, you know. But it's great because his death was sort of kind of plotting the path for a descent into insanity for Otis. So it was almost done with purpose, you know. And plus, going back to the house that Jack built versus Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, we always saw Jack at his worst. And with this one, we literally see Henry as a normal human being, you know.
Yeah, for a large part of the movie.
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, we were able to connect with him in some weird way.
Which I feel like is a better way of going about it, because with Jack, you're right, like you only see him at his worst, where here with Henry, for most of the movie, you're seeing him at his best. You know he's killing these people going in, but you're never seeing it, and you're actually seeing him be kind of nice to certain people.
Yeah.
So that when you do see him kill people, it's that moral, like, I was kind of following him on his side because he's the main character.
Yeah.
But also he's a terrible human. So you have that like weird, why do I like him? This is terrible. Or with Jack, you're just like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
No relation.
And when we get that, when I got that huge extreme from Jack to this, I was like, oh, okay. And now I could, perhaps I was mistaken when I said, oh yeah, I relate to Jack. I do not. Strangely enough, despite him murdering people, I do like Henry. I relate to him on some aspects. I mean, for fuck's sake, he literally saves Becky from her really creepy brother so many times.
Yeah. He has some kind of moralistic where he's not killing people because he hates humanity, and that's what Jack's thing was. He was killing people because he hated humanity, basically, or he wanted annihilation. Where Jack, I feel like they play it more, he just has a addiction. It's like they're playing it like he has an addiction, drug or whatever. It just happens to be murder. Yeah. But him as a normal human being, I think if he didn't have that part, would have been everyone would like him, I think.
Yeah, and even if I didn't know Michael Rooker, because I love Michael Rooker.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, even if I didn't know him prior, I still would have liked him before Michael Rooker was a name.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I read something that he was working as a janitor
Yeah.
before this movie and showed up to the audition in the janitor's clothes.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the beauty of independent film, because this movie cost $110,000 to make. So, and to cut down on costs, the filmmakers, director, producers, what have you, really resorted to hiring family members for things, using props that were already made available to them, stuff like that. I love shit like that.
Yeah,
so
I do too.
So when it came down to Michael Rooker, who, again, as you said, was working as a janitor and came in his uniform and, a jumpsuit or what have you, that just became his costume for the whole movie.
Yeah, he wore the
Yeah.
whole... Yeah, I love that. I like that he's, like, stayed in character for a large part of filming and isolated himself, right, from everyone else.
Yeah.
Unless he was filming with them.
In fact, I think he stayed in character so much that I think his wife at the time realized how dedicated he was to this role. So even she decided not to tell him that she was pregnant in order to just make sure he stays in character.
Yeah,
So,
that's insane. But
Yeah.
it comes across like Michael Rooker, he doesn't do anything that amazing. Like, there's no huge dramatic monologue. I mean, there's kind of one monologue that he does, but there's no crying in the screen with swelling music or anything. But but his performance is so understated, but so good.
yeah.
Like, he feels... I forget this is Michael Rooker, and I start seeing him as just Henry.
Yeah, and that's absolutely great. But I think this being his first role, and like you said, it was an understated performance where it almost became overstated in a way, meaning that it was just his charisma, and as you
He had a charm.
Yeah, a charm, and as you privately stated towards me in a message, yes, Henry can totally get it.
He totally could get it. Oh, man. I'd be in that suitcase for sure.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. But, you had mentioned a scene, and I think that was, our most, our really drama-based scene where Becky and Henry kind of share their backstories.
Yeah.
And it's so, so tragic on both sides.
And also scary. I was scared. I didn't know the ending to this movie. So in this moment, I was scared for Becky when she questioned him and was like, "You said you stabbed her." I'm like, "Oh, fuck."
And
you don't do that to someone killed their parents.
Yeah, and I kind of did get like a joke thing happening there. It's like, can we really trust what this man says? Did he actually kill his mom, or is he just remembering it wrong and just kind of forgetting facts?
It reminded me of the Joker in The Dark Knight.
Yeah,
where he kept telling different versions of how he got the scars. Is kind of like where I was getting that feeling.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put it past Heath Ledger to have maybe used this performance, at least maybe some of the behind the scenes stuff with Michael Rooker and how he got into the character of Henry. And I watched this with our mutual friend Richard, and the first thing he said when he saw Michael Rooker on camera, and I kind of agree. After a while, I could see it, but he does bear some resemblance to Heath Ledger.
He does. Now that you mention it, he did with the forehead for sure.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh wow, okay, I can definitely see it." So,
now, did Richard like the movie?
Yes, I believe he did. I believe this is the first film that actually kind of made him cringe. And we're talking, of course, that scene, so we'll get to that eventually. But I think the general consensus of the movie is that he did like it. So
Cool. Well, I'm glad.
yeah, but God, Otis, what a fucking piece of
What a
shit.
piece of shit. Oh my god. The second he was on screen, I was so annoyed with him.
Yeah, and but that's the character that I was like, oh wow, I have never seen that actor in a different role before. And I was, actually, I just learned that he was another character in a movie I like, because I think I only primarily knew him as that sheriff from House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects. But I just totally, I don't know why I never pieced it together, but he is totally the douchebag asshole from the Night of the Living Dead remake.
Really?
Harry Cooper, I think is his name.
I knew that I'd seen him somewhere, but I didn't bother really looking, but I couldn't place it at all.
My favorite line of that is, "You bunch of yahoos," or "yo-yos," or something like that. But god damn, he is so good at being so terrible. I hated him.
I hated him I mean, and because of how horrible he is, you like Henry more. Because
Yeah.
at this point, Henry seems to be somehow seems to have the moral high ground in every situation.
Yeah.
And
And I think the greatest irony of this movie is that the titular serial killer isn't even the villain in this movie. It's fucking
Yeah.
Otis.
it's almost like when I was watching the movie, I was like, it says Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, but who we're really watching turn into a serial killer is Otis. Because he said he'd never killed anyone until they murdered those hookers, right? Mm-hmm. And then...
I mean, admittedly, him going down that dark path is Henry's fault, but...
It is Henry's fault, but then you see him get this bloodlust, especially when they get the camera. So I feel like... I mean, Henry, we already know is a serial killer. He really doesn't have an arc. Henry's kind of the same person at the beginning as he is at the end. He's just a drifter. Where Otis goes from despicable piece of shit to despicable murderous pieces of shit. And I think if he had lived, he would have gone on to do maybe worse things than Henry.
Despicable, murderous, rapist, necrophiliac, incestuous piece of shit. That is 5 big fucking things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and... I mean, we're gonna jump ahead a little, but I mean his death scene,
hilarious,
and
well deserved. I was just like, stab him more and with something bigger.
No,
because what did he stab him with? Was like a screwdriver or something? It was so tiny.
Something like that. But I remember that was my one thing, and I was like, oh shit, what the fuck am I saying? Like, do more to him. You know, I wanted him to suffer more, but I just, and Richard will attest to this, but the moment Henry brings Otis's corpse to the tub and proceeds to cut his head off and his hands off, I was just laughing as giddily as a kid on Christmas because it was so awesome.
And again, yes, he's cutting his head and hands off, tastefully done. Yeah. Still horrific. The sound effects were disgusting, and yet somehow palatable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and even the worst. Well, yeah, okay, not the worst death, but I think it was the most brutal death. Caught me off guard. I'm of course referring to the television salesman. Because I was thinking that, okay, it's an 80s movie. It's not going to be overly violent or gory, you know. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. This is what I like. It was so well done because now that death hurt because he doesn't stab him with a knife. No, he stabs him with the soldering iron or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Multiple times. And the way that the fat ass reacts is just, that's what you get for being a dick, you know?
Yeah, and, I mean, he was comparable to Uma Thurman at the beginning of Jack.
Yo, absolutely. Except I didn't want Uma to die. I wanted this bastard to die. I didn't want Uma to die either. Yeah. And just in a bit of a behind the scenes with that, I think that the cherry on top of this very beautiful death cake was dropping the TV on his head.
Death Cake. Yeah. That's a movie title if I've
Death
ever
Cake,
heard
the
one.
movie.
Death Cake.
That should be your company name for short films. Death Cake Films. It's like a bloody cake.
Perfect.
And the cherry on top of the cake is a severed head.
Done. I would
Boom.
do that.
But in the behind the scenes, I didn't notice it. I noticed it the second time, but to get that effect of the TV dropping on the television salesman's head, they shot that in reverse. So they placed the TV on the head and just lifted it up, and in post they reversed it so it looks like he's smashing the TV down. And I'm like,
I love that. Genius.
Oh, ingenious. And
I wouldn't
worked.
have known that watching it. I couldn't tell.
When you do watch it again, you kind of realize it now. It's like, oh, okay, there's certain things that move unnaturally forward than backwards. But it was beautiful. I loved it, you know? Unfortunately, I think this sort of takes the cake of television deaths. I think for me, there was like a top 3 deaths involving televisions. One being Dream Warriors girl. You know, she goes, welcome to prime time, bitch. Stu. Poor Stu. And now this guy. I think this guy has now the best, bloodiest TV death. Because when that TV hits his face, there's like blood coming out. I'm like, my
gushing.
goodness.
His head exploded.
Love it. Absolutely love it. But he will not be missed. He deserved every bit that came coming to him.
I'm trying to think of the next. I mean, it's really Otis's death. That's kind of the next big graphic one. You briefly see that. Okay, no. Just kidding. I think the worst one is the family massacre.
Yes. And it's funny because it's not bloody.
It's not bloody at all. He snaps their neck, right?
Yeah, they all get their necks snapped. It's just... This is the one part of the movie that kind of had me making this...
Vile. It
face,
is vile.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's... The only reason why I think I felt that is because of how it's presented. If that if that moment was shot like how it's shot through, like as an actual movie, I don't know if it would have the same effect. But the fact that we're seeing it on a VHS tape made it feel way more authentic and disturbing.
It felt real.
You know, kind of like the whole we're watching something we shouldn't be looking at. You know.
Yeah, I feel like that scene definitely skirted the line between what I like and don't like watching. It stops right where it got to be, where I felt like it would cross it, where I would kind of, my feelings on the movie would change, and that's where, and Jack crosses that line like by a mile, whereas this movie knew where to stop, and even though it stopped before the worst, still gave you that ugly, horrible, suffering feeling that you get, at least I get, from watching certain murder scenes.
And this is so yeah. There were a couple things here where we kind of learned that Henry has morals to an extent, because had Henry not been there, Otis would have definitely fucked that woman's corpse.
Yes, he was just about to. So, and Henry, there's a lot of things. Like, I don't think he rapes people, right? I don't think Henry does rape.
Well, he does at the end. Oh, he totally rapes. He rapes Becky.
You think he rapes Becky?
Oh God, it was. I mean, they didn't show it, but my God, they've been going at it for some time after Henry left. They were totally. She was totally getting raped.
Really? I thought he just probably stabbed her to death.
Really? Oh
yeah,
wait.
Because there's blood all over the
I'm
suitcase.
sorry. I'm not. Hold on. I'm totally. Oh, you're saying Henry. I'm sorry. They were talking about Otis still. Oh, no.
Otis is for sure a rapist. I don't think Henry rapes people.
I agree. I don't think Henry is a rapist. He's just a good old-fashioned killer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that he does target women, though.
I have that in my notes. It seems he specifically, when he's on his own, kills women. It's only when he's with Otis that they kill 2 men.
Yeah, and even then, it's Otis. Otis is the one who kills the man.
It's really Otis. They had that one. There's the one scene that I thought it was going to be too much. I was like, oh, this is the scene that's going to be like, I'm not going to look. So when they're killing the man in the field, is it a homeless person? It's like just shot. It's just a video of them doing it in black and white, I think.
Ah, okay.
And it's kind of from afar.
Yeah, okay, wow. I guess I may have not remembered that then.
They're hitting him and tying him up. It doesn't look like he's stabbing him or anything, but the man is screaming. It is pretty violent, but I was like, again, it stopped, I think, right before too much could have been done.
Maybe that's why I remember it, because the parts I do remember are the ones that kind of went above and beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the hookers in the car was pretty scary.
Yeah, no, that was pretty. That was shocking. That caught me off guard too because, again, I knew nothing about this movie going in, so I was thinking, okay, Otis is just there, but no. Then that's where I realized, like, holy shit, like he killed those two women in front of Otis, and and even Otis was afraid at the time, like, what the fuck just happened,
Yeah, and then he was like totally on board. I thought that the second hooker took way too long to try and get out of the car.
Yeah, but I guess kind of believable too.
It is believable because I guess it might have been her friend, but I've been like, sorry, jump out the window.
Yeah, because she what does she say? She's like Susie or whatever. She screams the name out. Yeah, tries to get out, but is held back by Otis, and that's when.
Lady, you heard that snap.
Yeah, which behind the scenes was just a styrofoam cup being crushed right in front of the microphone.
And isn't that the actress that which one was it? Michael Rooker, where they like insisted she go to the hospital to check her neck because he felt that. It wasn't
that scene. It was a family murder scene, I believe.
Okay.
Where because Tom Towles is the one who snaps her neck, and he thought he legitimately killed her. But they yelled cut, and he was like, "Oh, okay, I'm fine." And he was like, "Oh, please just go get checked out, just for my sake, just to make sure you're okay." And she went, and she was okay.
And she was fine.
Yeah, but I just thought that was kind of funny.
It is because looking at it, it really you can tell he did not snap her neck. Like it's very like.
She does like the whole she animates herself way more to sell it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just speaking of, I think the acting in this movie pretty good with everyone. Michael Rooker is amazing, but I think everyone across the board is really, really good.
Yeah, Michael Rooker steals the show. That it makes so much sense why his career took off after this and really didn't falter or anything.
He's part of the Marvel family. He's set.
Oh, he is set. I know he's dead in the show, but he's definitely gonna have to come back.
And I think he's in Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I quite forget the character he's playing, but it's just not a James Gunn movie without Michael Rooker.
No. And then Slither, I think we can all agree is just...
Slither is great, and that is on the list for next year.
I am excited for that.
Yeah. I'd say the funny thing, though, is... I think everyone's great in dramatic roles in this, but it's funny because Tom Towles came from a primarily comedic background, so I thought it was pretty interesting to hire a comedic actor for a dramatic role, especially one as demented as this, and you can kind of sense that in some parts. Okay, that's where you can kind of see his comedic background kind of sneak in.
I think all the scenes where it's Henry, Otis, and Becky all together is so awkward that it's funny. Like there were parts that I kind of chuckled at where I'm like, I probably shouldn't be laughing at this, but it's just their dynamic and the way they all interacted with each other was just so cringy that I couldn't help but have like a nervous laughter.
Yeah, no, there was, I did not suspect Otis to be the asshole he was in the beginning. So even when he does make those kind of weird, like, offhand comments about Becky, such as, like, oh, yeah, she used to be a stripper, and to the point of, you going to give us a show, Becky? I'm like,
When he said it, I was like, did he just fucking say what
yeah, I was like, what the that's when I looked at Rich, like, oh, my God, is this... No. And then at the end of the movie, Otis. Oh, my God.
I'm like, because I was like, Henry should be the most detestable, and it's so funny that he's really not.
No. He does murder people, but it's funny because it's like we're siding with the serial killer versus the, the worst out of everyone. What is he? Again, we got the 5 things. Murderer, rapist, necrophiliac, incestual. Oh, one thing. Gay, too? Because there was that scene where he was selling the drugs to that kid.
Yes, he like licks his lips.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe he's bi, but I do remember that. To be fair, that kid was cute.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I gotta say the movie was maybe kind of playing it off as an underage person. At least maybe
he had a thing with
underage
people, and that was what he gets off on.
So it was just like, oh my God.
I kind of would have liked to seen if him like drunk, maybe trying to come on to Henry. That could have been interesting.
That would have been interesting. That would have also probably been the end of his character.
Yes, he probably would have died.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
one of the scenes that really kind of that made me think like, wow, okay, so this is probably why it is controversial. And it's not even because of the violence. But there was a scene where Henry was talking to Otis about like the do's and don'ts of how to murder someone. And I was thinking like, this is like serial killer 101.
101, someone is writing this down right now.
Yeah, like, don't always murder the same way. Don't use the same gun twice.
I mean, it was pretty smart. I was like, yep.
I was like, oh, I never
agree.
even think about that.
I agree.
I'm scared, Toby. I'm scared. But I was like, okay, that's a pretty interesting scene. That's a very interesting scene that
It was interesting.
isn't really found in movies. Now, like, okay, well, obviously they don't do this and that, And
Yeah.
I still think it was great timing that all that happened because I'm still in the midst of watching Mindhunter. So it's like, oh, okay.
Really good. That
Yeah.
was a really good show.
Yeah. But I think it's hilarious that there is a joke about the Bears, the Detroit Bears or something, where they say "fuck the Bears."
Yeah.
And ironically, today is the first NFL game featuring the Detroit Bears.
I saw that on
I'm like,
Twitter.
what? That's interesting timing.
Coincidence.
Fuck
Yeah.
the Bears. Well, I think there's only one last thing to talk about, and that's the ending.
Yeah. Did you see it coming?
I did not, and I love it though. I am a sucker for ambiguity, and this is the moment where I wish we were watching this together because I would have looked right at you and it's like, "What's in the fucking box?" Or
Yeah, I thought that
suitcase.
too. I mean, it's Becky. I
It's-
feel like there's no doubt about it.
I don't want it to be Becky, but it is totally Becky in that suitcase.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there is just that, again, like Henry is the one who has constantly defended Becky, protected her from her rapist brother, incestual brother. God killed for her,
Yeah.
killed Otis for her.
Hit the body.
Yeah, and they had similar upbringings, what with Becky's father molesting her and Henry's ordeal with his mother,
Which is,
watching
I mean,
her. I mean,
Very The Cell, right? Like, is what I was getting from.
Right. And I guess for our listeners, Henry's mother was a prostitute, and his mother would make him watch her get fucked by all these men. And she would put him in a dress. So I also kind of got Rorschach vibes with that too, from Watchmen.
Yeah. Yeah,
At least
I can see that.
At least Snyder's version. I haven't seen the show yet, so I can't say.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, the show is way better, but yeah, Snyder.
Yeah.
I can see that.
But I mean, there were a lot of means. I mean, Becky invited Henry to come with him, come
To
with
her
her
family.
to her family to be like, okay. So I'm not saying there's like hope for the future for him, but it's like there is a connection there, and because of all of that, that's why I didn't want Becky to be in that suitcase.
When they were in the car, like, discussing where they were going to go and stuff, I was like, okay, maybe he's going to go with her and try and live a different life. But the minute where she was like, I love you, and he's like, I guess I love you too, like, she's dead.
Yeah, because most of his like violent like reactions to the movie stemmed from sexual things.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
it's a motel room, which I'm like, we already have seen several motel rooms of dead bodies, right? So, I mean, when he was in there looking at himself in the mirror, I'm like, Becky, get the fuck out.
Which is I understand why that has become like an iconic thing, because for me, I mean, it had that moment of like, oh, but then like, okay, they're gonna, the last shot of the movie is them hitting the road into the sunset, sunrise, whatever, but then he pulls over. You don't really see Becky in the front seat, but you see him lugging her suitcase, a bloody suitcase, and abandoning it on the side of the road. And again, I'm a sucker for ambiguity, and it's almost as if you can't be right or wrong in this, and you can take it either way. One, maybe theoretically,
I don't think you can take it anyway. And even Michael Rooker was like, of course it's Becky.
Michael
in the
Rooker did
suitcase.
confirm.
He did. He was like, of course it's Becky. Of course it's Becky. Where did she go? You think he, like...
Because even I was thinking, like, what if that's just the remainder of Otis's body, or just like his head and hands or something, so that.
But
at
then we
least
hear her screaming.
Okay.
We hear audio of Becky screaming as we zoom into her bloody suitcase.
Kind of how it did in the opening scene with those other
it was
victims.
like that. Yeah, so it was just like, at the end of the day, he's still a serial killer.
Yeah.
Like no matter how much you like him, at the end of the day, he's still this evil person and will destroy anyone.
Which is a damn shame because, I don't know. I thought they were kind of cute together. I felt that they could even
two damaged people.
Yeah, like if Henry wasn't a complete total psychopath and murdered people, they could have probably helped heal each other.
I agree.
But this is a very, very dark movie, very, very dark ending, and I guess I concede Becky is in the suitcase. Any hopes of her living has just went out the fucking window. Thank you.
No, it's time for bed.
But gosh, lovely ending though.
I love it. It was a perfect cherry on top. It was dark, and they didn't need to show her die. I thought again, and yet it was tasteful, and I think this way is even more disturbing. Mm-hmm. Just imagining what he would have done to her, and enough to be able to put her in that suitcase too.
Oh God, yeah. She is not like, she definitely got cut up.
Piece.
She's
one
definitely
piece.
in several pieces now.
Yeah.
And it was also, the effectiveness of that scene is also present in the opening scene because, like I said, we said all we hear is the action being committed. All we see are the aftermaths, which makes you have to wonder all the horrible things that happened to this person.
And I wonder if this is an inspiration, totally random, to Rob Zombie with the killing of Annie in Halloween 2.
I would totally buy that. Also because of, I don't think it was no coincidence that, of course, Rob Zombie would hire Tom Tolles to be in House of Thousand Corpses, and
yes,
what is God, the brother's name in that movie? Otis.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
So Otis, Becky, baby. I don't. Yeah, that's maybe stretching it, but there's no coincidence there.
Oh, cool. Well, props to, I guess, Rob Zombie for that. It was effective in that movie too.
Yeah, I loved it though. Yeah, I think one of my favorite things about this movie, like maybe artistically even, is that it shot on my favorite film stock. I love the look of 16mm film.
It looks good and grimy and dirty.
Yeah, it's exactly what this film needed to be shot on at that time because that's the whole point of 60mm film, that it's not perfect and and you find the perfection in the imperfection, so to speak.
Yeah,
it's kind of like how you fuck up a photo, but sometimes even fuck ups can be artistic.
Agreed. Yeah,
and exactly you say, it's grainy, it's grimy, it's harsh. For me, the grain looked like snowfall to me, so I was really thoroughly, I enjoyed that very much. So
yeah, I agree. All right, well, should we move on to final thoughts?
Yes, we should.
All right, Harrison, what did you think of Henry?
Oh God, what an absolute hidden gem for me. I think now that I have seen this, I can actually maybe now shit talk the house that Jack built. I think for a lot of reasons, the house that Jack built has its audience, but there are other films that have done it better. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, does the serial killer artistically well with this, as opposed to whatever house that Jack built was. Yeah. I think that the producers of this movie hired the director, who is John McNaughton, to make a independent slasher film in the vein of all the other movies that were coming out. They wanted a Friday the 13th. They wanted a sleepaway camp. They wanted like April Fool's Day and what have you. And it's funny because like I said, it finished. Like I said earlier, they finished it in 1986. But they shelved it because they didn't think it was worth their time to release, because they wanted something ridiculous and stupid and just like
they wanted a
quick buck,
a slasher, a run of the mill slasher.
titties,
tits.
blood, gore, the works,
Yeah.
you know? But instead, the producers got a darker and more complex film.
You had
And
to think about it.
Yeah, it was the thinking man slasher film, you know? It's like, you know, you get Jason murdering a bunch of naked girls. Okay, this film asks why, though? And I love it
exactly.
for that.
Why?
You know? It gives more mindfulness to, well, a serial killer.
The mind of a serial killer.
Yeah, it paints the perfect portrait of a serial killer. And it leaves you with a sense of, like, hopelessness, but a very ponderous hopelessness, where it and maybe for some people, maybe some people argue with the fact that maybe that isn't Becky in the suitcase, you know. And there's a lot of people who say, yeah, Becky is in the suitcase, and therefore it's a darker ending. And it's great because I think both endings work, whatever you may want to believe.
I agree.
I believe now Becky is in the suitcase. So, but
Becky was not long for this world.
But no, it's shot beautifully too. Despite it being shot on pretty like 60mm film, the film doesn't look cheap. It feels very artsy. Feels very
like a theatrical
cinematic
experience.
Absolutely, it is dark. It's complex. It is disturbing and violent in all the right ways, and it didn't haunt me, but it stuck with me. And
yes.
Yeah, and that is the kind of stuff that I love. When I say I love horror and violence, I will refer to the television salesman's death. That was absolutely amazing, and I want more.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
So I think it's pretty obvious. I love Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. What did you think?
I too loved Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which I did not think I was going to coming off of Jack. It left a bad taste in my mouth. Didn't really want to watch this movie when I put it on, but I was like, you know what? I got a review. Let's get out of the way. And I was immediately sucked in. Like, despite showing immediately corpses and things like that, it had everything I wanted in a horror movie that I like. And I feel like this movie is just a perfect example of where the line is for me, as far as, like, this movie had a story. It had reasons for what was happening, and they didn't linger on specific things just to make you feel disgusting, like, just to do it. Everything had meaning, and it was tastefully done. And I feel like some people will be like, maybe that takes away from the horror of it or the terror, and I don't think it does, because I think although it's not showing you all of the torture and things like that, I think just the idea of what he does, and just the sounds, and then the aftermath is enough to give you that feeling, at least for me. And like you said, it's a thinking man slasher. And I think if you think deeper about certain things, you'll find it more disturbing than I think you would have Friday the 13th, that shows everything.
Friday the 13th at some point became tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
Especially I think with the 6th century. So I don't know. I love it. It's just a well-made film, especially when the director knows how to utilize a small budget. It feels big budget, but it was a very small budget, and it's like a violent sucker punch of a movie, and I just loved every moment of it.
It's good,
except for Becky downtown.
Oh, that was a piece of shit. They could have cut that for sure. I just think, like, this, I'll reference this movie when people, because it can be confusing in the last episode for someone who loves horror, which I do. I love horror, love murder scenes, all that jazz. I love slashers. And I feel like in the last review, it could confuse people. Like, how can you be a horror fan and not like this? Everything that happened to Jack. And I feel like I can reference this movie and be like, this is just as horrific and scary in some parts. But it just does everything. I'm trying to think of the word. I don't know. It's a perfect example. If someone needs to, like, watch this movie, everything this movie does right is why I don't like Jack. Like, it does the opposite, basically. Like, say if they had said, oh, he killed someone and cut her boobs off, and they showed, like, a Polaroid, it would be horrific and get the point across, but it wouldn't have changed my mind about the movie. Like, it wouldn't have given me a bad taste towards the movie. And I think that's the line, that I have.
Okay, and what's pretty crazy is now I think that you maybe would have been able to handle the Poughkeepsie tapes.
And honestly, after watching this, I was thinking that too.
Because, it never gets as gratuitous as the house that Jack built. As far as I'm concerned, the Poughkeepsie tapes falters a little underneath Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. So,
I might give it a watch. There's
always next year.
I do like American Psycho as a review. I think it's been a while since I've seen it, and I know I really like that movie, and I think that's also another example of how to do this kind of movie. Because it is horrific and I think more violent and gratuitous than Henry, while still being tasteful and well directed. It's not smut, it's not just to be exploitive.
Yeah.
Which I think is what I don't like.
But honestly, if we are comparing American Psycho and Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, Henry definitely takes the cake as far as portraying violence. Yeah.
I do agree, although it does minus a point because we do get a really hot scene of Christian Bale running around naked with the chainsaw and full
Yes, we don't see Michael Rooker naked. We see a lot of boobs, a lot of breasts.
I would have liked it, though.
Young Michael Rooker naked. Interesting.
There's pictures out there somewhere.
Oh, there's
if we can get Captain America, which...
What is this? Did I miss something?
You didn't get you didn't see it's online. So, okay, you can cut this out or whatever.
No, what's the T? What's the T? So
Chris Evans accidentally posted a video. It was like a video, I think, of his camera roll, and someone screenshotted it, and I guess he accidentally... It's not a full picture. It's just little squares, of a camera roll.
Oh, my God.
And one of them is his dick.
Oh, my God.
So
okay.
Look it up. It's
just
good.
Chris Evans nude pic. Okay.
And, it's Captain America's dick, as far as I'm concerned. It's America's dick.
It's America's dick. That's America's ass and dick.
Well, good for him is what I'd say.
Good for him. Yeah, all these memes apparently kind of paint the picture, so I'll go look for it right after this.
Okay.
But what do you give Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer? What should we do out of 5? How many? I got one.
How many suitcases?
Yes. How many suitcases out of 5 do you give Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer?
I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 suitcases.
Wow.
Because coming off of Jack, and maybe because I hated Jack so much and I was so pleasantly surprised about this movie, but I feel like this movie really does. Maybe a 0.5 would be more fair, but because I was pleasantly surprised about how much I liked it, I think that bumps it up for me. I think it's a very I'll probably rewatch this movie. I think there's a lot there. There's a lot of depth there, despite the graphic, of scenes and stuff like that.
There's a lot to unpack.
We could probably continue talking about this for hours, honestly. There's a lot more you can talk about. And as a horror fan, it satisfied the violence that I wanted, the gore that I wanted, while
absolutely.
Still not making me feel like a piece of shit while I was watching it. I didn't feel like Otis, which watching Jack, I feel like a voyeur.
Literally almost everyone except for that poor man who got shot trying to help him deserved their death.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. I really, really like this movie, and I highly recommend it for any kind of... I think even if you're not a horror fan, I think it's... If you're a film fan, if you just love film, I think it's a must.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's the same. I give Henry of Portrait of a Serial Killer 5 suitcases out of 5. Just for all those reasons. And it's funny because it's not really an exploitative film, despite its disturbing content. But it's in some ways, it's like a very... It holds back in all the right places, and it goes out for all the right times,
It pushes you when you want to be put in a way you want to be pushed with cinema, but it definitely holds itself from making you despise what you're watching so that you can continue with the movie.
Yeah, like this is the movie that I personally hate myself for have taken this long to have watched this. It's one of those movies.
I agree, yeah. Like Dead Alive. It's like that. Like I'm like, how did I not watch this before?
Yeah. And it's crazy because it's not like, and I think I maybe speak on behalf of you too, but it's not like I haven't not heard of this movie. You know, as I always say, it's always been on the list. So it's like I'm really glad that I watched it finally, because I feel now it is the unspoken important entry in horror history. You know.
I agree. I think I see a lot of inspiration that other movies have taken from this movie. Maniac, I think. The remake. I think the remake of Maniac
with Elijah Wood.
With Elijah Wood.
Okay.
Maybe the original. It's been so long since I've seen.
I've only seen the remake.
I've only seen I did see the original a long time ago, and I don't remember liking it because it took me a long time to watch the remake of Maniac. But I think Maniac has a very close feeling to Henry. I think, as far as the serial killer meeting a woman, maybe there's going to be something there. Can he be a killer, or can he overcome that to have a regular life? I was kind of getting similar vibes from that. Although I will say Maniac is much more brutal.
Yeah, I just honestly I need to rewatch that. The only thing I remember is Elijah Wood turning into a mannequin. Yeah,
I mean, there's one scene that doesn't cross the line, but it is up there with some of the Jack kills. There's a scalping that happens.
I need to rewatch that then.
It's a good movie. And the soundtrack.
Oh, I remember that. Pretty bumpin'. I remember that.
It was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good movie. I'm really happy that I watched it. There is a sequel.
I did read that in the mid-90s, right?
Yes, mid-90s has terrible reviews.
Oh.
But I'm kind of... Michael Rooker's not in it. That already bumps it way down. It's a different actor.
Not interested then.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe one day, but maybe if we ever do the unnecessary sequels, that could be on it.
I like that. Well, all right then. Shall we discuss next week's movie?
Let's do it. What are we watching, Harrison?
So continuing on with Serial Killer September, we are covering Dahmer, starring Hawkeye himself, Jeremy Renner.
Also, another very attractive serial killer.
Oh my goodness. Wait, Jeremy Renner or actually Jeffrey Dahmer?
Jeremy Renner.
Okay.
As Jeffrey Dahmer.
Okay. All right.
Only as Jeffrey Dahmer, though.
Oh, okay. But yeah, Dahmer is a biopic about the notorious serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, which takes place in both the past and the present. You know, I feel that this may be another entry in which, is it horror? Is it drama? I think it's both. You know?
I agree. I agree with that. It is definitely on the line of...
Yeah.
It's not a splatterfest.
No.
That's for sure. And it's definitely way more leaning towards Henry as far as delving into the mind of a serial killer. And I remember liking it a lot the last time. I've seen it a couple times, but it's been about 10 years. So.
Yeah, I think the last time I watched it, I rented it from Blockbuster.
I think I was in high school, honestly.
Yeah.
When I watched it.
So we'll have to see if it has, survived the test of time.
Yeah.
I think it's like it's not getting horrible ratings, but it's not getting good ratings either. I think
it's
it has
very middling.
Yeah. I just remember, I don't know, because I know it was a part of those series of films that were made around that time of serial killers. You got Gacy, the BTK killer, those like really cheap direct-to-videos.
I just remember the scenes of the victim who gets away.
Yes, that's the one thing.
Because it was so tense.
Yeah, the scene where that happens and like the ending for me, because I remember feeling... Well, I'll have a lot to say about the ending. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but I planned it specifically to be this week's movie. Because they remastered the movie and they scanned the original negatives.
Next week's movie?
Oh, I'm sorry, next week's movie. But they scanned the positive in 2K. It's gonna have a proper Blu-ray release coming out this week, and I'm all like,
of course,
yes,
perfect timing.
Perfect timing, and it's funny because it did get delayed from August to now, so it's like. Okay, I'll take it. Meant to be. So I'll be watching a brand new, version of that movie, brand spick and span. So
awesome. Well, I'm excited. I am excited to see that movie.
Yeah. So thanks for listening to us discuss Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Join us next week on Tuesday when we discuss Dahmer. You can find us on all the social medias. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just search up at The Final Gaze on all of those. You can also listen to us on Podbean, iTunes Podcasts, Spotify, and our website at www.thefinalgaze.com, where, of course, you can find pictures of us, biographies, and all that jazz.
Well, until next time, I'm Toby.
And my name is Harrison, and we are The Final Gaze. Holy shit. Give me 1 second. I gotta pee real bad. Well, then we'll
So
finish
do
it,
I.
okay?
Oh my God,
Okay, oh
okay.
my God. Go pee.
5 minutes later.
Well, that was just magical.
I was like, oh my God.
Dude, I was like kind of doing a dance or
I
something.
was so my legs were like tapping so hard.
Well, but all right. Well, thanks for listening to us discuss Henry Portrait of a What the fuck? Let me try that again.
Henry Portrait of What the Fuck?
Until then, you can always listen to us on all. What the fuck? I used to got this so well.
All of
Okay.
the places.
Yes.